Hi, everyone. As I mentioned earlier, this is Brian Stone. I'm joined by my colleague, David Arsabar. We both work for Equal Justice Works, and we're very excited to have you joining us today for this orientation webinar. Each of you received this invitation because you're listed as a supervisor for an AmeriCorps JD member at your organization this summer. A few housekeeping rules before we get started. I just wanted to let you all know that I expect these slides to take about 20 minutes to get through. This is a very brief introductory webinar to supplement the information that each of you has within the AmeriCorps JD program manual that was sent to you at the beginning of the program. After we go through the slides, I'll open it up for questions. There is an opportunity to type in questions in the chat box, so please use the chat box feature, and you can send it to the organizer. We'll go through all the questions here live, and then of course our contact information will be available at the end of the presentation, and you'll each be able to email us or give us a call if you have further questions that you'd like to take up with us offline. Secondly, people always ask if the slides or the recording will be available. The answer is yes to both of those questions. So we are recording this presentation, and we will send a link of the recording out to each of you at the conclusion of the webinar today. Give us just a few days to compile everything together, and we'll get the notes and the slides and recording out to all of you. With that, I think we're ready to dive in here. I want to thank you again for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us for this webinar. The AmeriCorps JD program is a very important program here at Equal Justice Works. We are committed to mobilizing the next generation of public interest lawyers. And with that, we need interested law students to start engaging in public interest law. And that wouldn't be possible without host organizations, without the legal aid organizations that you all work at. So we're excited that you've agreed to serve as supervisors for the law students serving at your organizations this summer. We want to make sure that you all feel equipped and prepared to not only provide a great summer experience for the law students, but maintain compliance with the regulations that are set forth by our federal funder, AmeriCorps. So here's a brief overview of where we're going to head today during this training. First, we're going to talk about the background of AmeriCorps and of Equal Justice Works. We'll talk about the difference between our organization, Equal Justice Works, and what AmeriCorps is and what AmeriCorps does. Secondly, we'll look at the timeline of the program so that you all have a good idea of not only where you've come from over the last few weeks, but then what will be expected of you over the course of this summer. We'll discuss the responsibilities of your time as a supervisor in more detail. Then we'll go over the Segal Education Award and what exactly that entails. Finally, we'll take a look at some compliance issues related specifically to the prohibited activities for all AmeriCorps service members, and then we'll talk about how to successfully exit your members. All right, so moving forward, Equal Justice Works and AmeriCorps are two separate organizations. Equal Justice Works is a nonprofit organization. We are located in Washington, D.C., and we have received funding from the government agency, the Corporation for National and Community Services. We usually refer to them as CNCS, and they fund all AmeriCorps programs, including AmeriCorps Vista, AmeriCorps State and National. There's Civilian Conservation Corps, also run by AmeriCorps. So there's a lot of government-funded government-funded programs run out of this agency, the Corporation for National and Community Service. The focus of each of these programs is to promote and provide opportunities for American citizens to engage as national service members. The way that we work with CNCS is we are a grantee And we've received funding from AmeriCorps for 4 different programs that provide funding for law students and public interest attorneys to serve throughout the country in targeting specific client groups to provide legal services. So I've listed out the 4 programs on the slide. The first program is the Employment Opportunity Legal Corps. This program has set up 30 different attorneys, a number of law students around the country to provide services related to removing barriers for employment to their clients. And so most of their work relates to expunging criminal records for people, getting clients proper identification documentation so that they can prove their eligibility for work, and other legal remedies that would remove barriers to employment. The second program is called Justice AmeriCorps. This is a program specifically targeted at removing or targeted at helping immigrants, young immigrant children who cross the border unaccompanied, to receive relief or at least representation in immigration court for their deportation proceedings. So that's a very narrowly focused program that has a number of lawyers, law students, and actually paralegals serving around the country. The third program is the Veterans Legal Corps. This program, as it says, is focused on providing legal services to veterans as well as their families. And so the law students and lawyers working in this program are working specifically either with veterans themselves or the families of deceased veterans. And then finally, the fourth and newest program is called Elder Justice AmeriCorps. And this program is focused primarily on providing legal services to older Americans who may be victims of abuse, neglect, or financial exploitation. So the law students serving at your organization this summer have all been accepted into one of these 4 programs. Even if the work that they're doing doesn't necessarily fit into one of these 4 categories, I wanted to reassure you that there are positions available for general civil legal aid within each of these programs. And so if the law students at your organization are doing more general work this summer, I just want to reassure you that they have not been accepted by mistake, that they do belong as a national service member, as an AmeriCorps JD member. But these 4 programs are where we receive funding from AmeriCorps in order to provide the positions available for these law students. This slide shows kind of by the numbers the impact that AmeriCorps programs have had around the country, and then more specifically what AmeriCorps JD has been able to, the impact AmeriCorps JD has had. So there have been over 1 million individuals who have served as AmeriCorps members since AmeriCorps was started back in 1994. Out of those 1 million individuals, Equal Justice Works has recruited and provided education awards for over 6,000 members, and we got into this game in 1999. So we've been providing opportunities for AmeriCorps or for law students to serve as AmeriCorps members since 1999. In total, that's over 1 billion hours served by AmeriCorps members, and with specifically AmeriCorps JD members, that's been over 1.6 million hours of service, and that goes to the 300 service hours that each of your members have agreed to serve this summer. And then the big incentive for this program, as you all know, or at least your law students know, is the Segal Education Award. The Segal Education Award has been given out in a total of over $2.4 billion, and over $5.7 million of that has gone to AmeriCorps JD members. And in this year specifically, AmeriCorps expects over 80,000 citizens to participate in one of its programs, and we have currently over 330 law students in all 4 of our programs who are serving as AmeriCorps JD members. So we're very proud of all these numbers. these are the numbers that keep AmeriCorps funded and that allow us to continue running great programs to help law students and public interest attorneys get connected with great opportunities around the country. All right, so now we're going to talk more specifically about AmeriCorps JD and about what you can expect for the remainder of this summer. But I want to start by looking back at what it required for law students to secure a position as an AmeriCorps JD member. So first, each law student was required to apply for an AmeriCorps JD position through our online database called the Student Application Manager, or SAM for short. So each of the students created a profile, inputted their personal information, and then also gave us their project description. Once they locked in their project description, you or someone from your organization had to review the position activities that they described that they would be working on this summer. And the reason that we asked for that was so that we could determine if the activities that they're participating in fit within the scope of our grant. There's 4 grants that I discussed a few slides ago. If their project activities did fit within one of our grants, then we accepted them, and each member, as well as each representative from each host organization, was required to sign the Member Service Agreement. So this Member Service Agreement is a legal contract that determines the activities and the terms of service, both the start and end date, for each of the law students. And that had to be signed before any members could begin their service. One more piece that each member had to accomplish before they could begin their service was the state and FBI criminal history checks. And so each of you, before you could sign the Member Service Agreement, had to watch a short video that provided you with some additional specific information about their criminal history check and why it's required by AmeriCorps. I won't walk through all of that right now because you've all seen the video, but in short, this was one of the biggest pieces that granted this bipartisan piece of legislation to get passed, was that each of the AmeriCorps service members would be required to undergo this series of criminal history checks, both in the state that they're serving and a national check, a fingerprint-based check in the FBI databases. So this was to ensure that any clients, any individuals within your community that receive service by these members, they can be sure that there has been an appropriate background check for each of the AmeriCorps members before they started. Okay, moving to the next little blob there is the ongoing activities that you'll engage in. So these monthly activities. Each of your law students will have to track their hours throughout the summer so that we can provide documentation proof that they have completed 300 hours of service. They'll submit these hours every month, and you will be required as a supervisor to sign off that the hours do accurately reflect the service or training that your AmeriCorps JD members participated in during that month. And then additional ongoing activities are the criminal history checks had to be uploaded to SAM, so you weren't really involved with this, but each of your members had to upload both the initiation proof and the results of the criminal history checks before they could start. I'm sorry, not before they could start. The initiation had to be completed before they could start, and then the results had to be uploaded as soon as they received them. And then the second piece that's listed there is the work plan. So I encourage each of you to follow up with your members about this work plan. So this is something that they need to complete in the SAM module, in that Student Application Manager module. This determines kind of the breakdown of how they divide their time every day and throughout the course of the summer. And then it's also an opportunity for them, for these law students, to set forth goals for how many clients they want to serve, how many positive outcomes they want to achieve. And a lot of that, of course, is going to be determined by the work that you give them to do as their supervisor. So I encourage you to be involved in the work plan process so you can give your expertise and feedback as a supervisor and as a trained attorney and to what they would be realistically able to accomplish this summer. And then at the end of the summer, so after you're certifying hours every month, we do need you to complete the final time log certification. And this is a chance where you certify that the member has completed all 300 service hours and that their service has been adequate, that's been satisfactory according to the expectations that you had when you agreed to have them serve at your organization this summer. And then the final thing that you'll need to sign off on is the final report. So this final report is a chance for the law students to give us a snapshot of what their service looked like this summer and the impact that they had. So we'll talk about this in more detail later on today, but they'll have a chance to write down the number of clients that they interacted with, number of clients that they did intakes for, and then any positive outcomes that they had a chance in helping out on. They'll also write narratives. So they'll write a success story narrative as well as just an overall summary of their experience so that we are able to not only understand here what their service looked like, but then be able to accurately report that to our funder, the Corporation for National Community Service. So it's very important that you're reviewing the final reports and signing off on those so that we can ensure the verification of the data that they report to us, and so that we have appropriate documentation for any report or data that we then send back up to AmeriCorps. And then the final piece is the Segal Education Award. Each of the members will receive this education award in the My AmeriCorps portal once they have completed their service and the final report's done and the final time log has been certified. So it's very, very crucial that you do your part in signing off on the final report at the end of the summer so that we can successfully exit each of the last students from AmeriCorps and they can all receive their education award. So here's just listed out the responsibilities. I'll run through these quickly. So you've all already reviewed and approved the project description in SAM. You've signed the member service agreement, and you've seen the criminal history check process video. Each of you, as I mentioned, should have received a program manual. I already received one question from someone saying that they did not receive that program manual, so I will follow up with you afterward and make sure that you have it, that you can read all about the AmeriCorps JD program and Eagle Justice Works. And then this is a big one. So this was the accompaniment was discussed in the criminal history check training video. Each of you is required to provide accompaniment to your member until the results of either the FBI check or both state checks are received, and you will certify that you did provide this accompaniment at the same time that you certify the first month of hours. Fifth, you need to help your member develop a work plan. I just discussed this. So the member has access to this in SAM, but we do expect you to be engaged so that you can provide expertise and technical assistance to the members as they complete that in SAM. And then finally, you will be expected to certify final time log, the exit form, and the final report. All right, so a little bit more detail about the Segal Education Award. For any of the members serving in the Employment Opportunities, Veterans Legal Corps, or the Elder Justice AmeriCorps, those are 300-hour programs. So the members need to complete 300 service hours, and they will receive an education award worth $1,230 this summer. For anyone serving in the Justice AmeriCorps program, that's a 450-hour program, and the education award is accordingly a little bit higher. It's $1,500, so $1,538 specifically for that award. The education award is not a check from Equal Justice Works, so they're not going to be receiving any cash or a check in the mail. It will be a electronic funds transfer into their My AmeriCorps account, which each of the members should have received an invitation by this point to create their My AmeriCorps account. If they haven't, then they will soon. So they just go to myamericorps.gov and set up an account there. and that is where the funds will be dispersed. So once they have access to the funds at the end of their service, they can only direct those funds to their current educational institution or to their lender. So only two places it can go. They can also use the education award on qualifying educational expenses. And I've listed here that each law school is going to have a specific category for what qualifies as educational expenses. Usually it's books at a minimum. It could be class fees that are required, but that really is determined by each financial office at a law school. And then one note that I made at the bottom of this slide is that the law students do have up to 7 years to use the education award, and they don't have to use it all at once. So if they want to break it up and dispense it at different times during the year, then they are more than welcome to do that. That could help with their public service loan forgiveness payment. All right, just a couple more slides where I want to talk about program compliance. So I mentioned that the National Service Act it was passed bipartisanly, and with that, there comes with a number of activities that AmeriCorps service members are not able to engage in during their service hours. And so these activities are all listed in the member service agreement that was signed, as well as the project description that was approved. So this should not be new information to you, but I do want to go through it briefly here, just to make sure that you're all aware of what these activities are. So AmeriCorps members during their service hours are not able to attempt to influence legislation in any way. They cannot organize or engage in protests, petitions, boycotts, or strikes. They cannot assist, promote, or deter any union organizing. So all those kind of go together. Shouldn't be organizing any unions within your organization, shouldn't be participating in any protests or boycotts. Additionally, AmeriCorps members cannot impair any existing contracts for services at your organization or that your organization engages in. They should not be engaging in any partisan political activities or any other activities that are designed to influence the outcome of an election. So it's very important that during their service hours, so again, these are the hours that they're counting towards their 300 service hours, they should not be engaging in anything political or anything that could be construed as political. Additionally, they cannot participate or endorse in any events that are likely to include advocacy for or against a political party, a political platform, a political candidate, or any proposed legislation. They should not engage in any religious instruction. This includes conducting worship services, providing instruction as part of a program that includes religious instruction. We've been pretty safe as we reviewed each of these applications that none of your organizations do this, but I just want to make sure that you have all heard this at least and are aware of this prohibited activity. Continuing, no AmeriCorps members may provide a direct benefit to a for-profit business, any labor unions, a partisan political organization, or any nonprofit organization that does not comply with 501c3 codes of the IRC code. So you're all 501c3 organizations. And we already talked about any religious any organization engaged in religious activities that are described above, unless CNCS assistance is not used to support the religious activities. So that's kind of a bit of a nuanced loophole to it. If you feel that your members may engage in religious activities that are in which CNCS assistance is not being provided, let us know and we can talk about that offline. And then finally, AmeriCorps members should not be conducting any voter registration drives or using any CNCS funds to conduct drives They should not be providing abortion services or referrals for abortion services to any of their clients. And then finally, any other activities that CNCS may prohibit. If there are new activities that CNCS wishes to prohibit, you will all be notified, and we'll make sure that you understand what those additional activities are. Okay. I just want to hit again the criminal history check compliance. It's really crucial that the results are uploaded within 24 hours of receipt. So this year, fortunately, our staff here was able to initiate most of the checks, but there's still about 15 states where we cannot initiate checks. And so if you're in one of those states that cannot initiate those checks, or that has to initiate the checks, excuse me, then please make sure that you're uploading the results within 24 hours of receipt. And if we don't receive the results of all the checks, then we can't exit the member. So it's kind of harsh, but it's kind of how it goes with a program funded by the government. If we don't receive the results by the end of the summer, then we cannot exit that member. So very, very important that we do receive the results and they're uploaded in SAM. And then I already touched on accompaniment a little bit. If you have any questions about what accompaniment entails, please reach out to us. But in short, until the results for either the FBI or both state criminal history checks are received, then you need to be accompanying your AmeriCorps JD member whenever they have access to a vulnerable population. And I define a vulnerable population there as any minor, so anyone 17 years old or younger, or any adult that is 60 years or older, or any person with disabilities. So anytime the AmeriCorps JD member has access, and that's by phone, by email, or in person, has access to a vulnerable population, then you as a supervisor need to ensure that you are accompanying, so either CC'd on that email or on a conference call for that phone call, or in the room, or at least within earshot of your members when they have access to vulnerable populations. Now, as soon as the results are received and uploaded, then accompaniment can end. But until then, please make sure that you're providing accompaniment. All right, monitoring this year. This is kind of a new thing. So if you've participated as a AmeriCorps supervisor in past years, then you probably this is new for you. So we're going to be conducting some informal check-in calls this summer. By we, I mean myself and David Arsabar, who's with me today. So we'll be just having short, no longer than 30-minute calls with you and your member. We want to make sure that you have a chance to talk back to us, let us know how things are going. We want to hear how the service is progressing, how the impact, what the impact is on your communities, and then just any questions that you have about any of the compliance-related stuff that's required in SAM or anything about the program at all. So we're excited to have more of these conversations with the members this summer, and we look forward to engaging you in that. We don't have the time or the manpower to call all of you this summer, but we will be reaching out to a number of organizations. So let me give you a heads up about that. In addition, we'll be continuing to provide more training resources. So we've already conducted a couple of training webinars for law students. We did one last year specifically targeted at providing legal services to elders and how to look out for any indications of elder abuse. And then we've provided another veterans-focused legal service training. So we, as we host those periodically during the summer, we'll make sure we record all of them and then send out the recording via email to all the members within that program. And then, of course, we are happy to provide any technical support needed for SAM. Just reach out to us via email or phone with any questions that you or your members have about SAM, and we will do our best to answer them or resolve any errors. All right, and the last thing that I touched on a little bit is the final reports. These final reports must be completed by the member in SAM at the end of their service term. So we ask that the reports are completed within a week of their final day in the office, but really they should be completed these before they leave your organization at the end of the summer. We're looking for the members to accurately depict the number of clients that they serve and the number of positive outcomes that they achieve during their service term. We understand that as law students, they're not going to be the attorney of record, obviously, for any of their clients, and so they are limited in what they can actually provide for each case. But we do hope that they can count however many cases that they helped out on, provided research for, provided the intake for, up to, and this is very important, they should not be counting on their final report any cases that they helped on with one of the Equal Justice Works AmeriCorps Legal Fellows. So if you are an organization that has some Equal Justice Works AmeriCorps Legal Fellows, so these are the full-time attorneys, then any cases that the law student works on should not be counted in the final report. If you have any questions about this, feel free to reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to discuss kind of what it should or should not count, but it's very important that our data is accurate, and that doesn't include any double counting of cases. And so you will, as a supervisor, be required to review and approve this final report. All right, so that's the end of the slides. I'm going to open it up for questions right now. So please type in any questions to the chat box, and we'll be happy to look over your questions and respond in real time now. And then, as I mentioned, we will be sending out the slides and the recording via email. So if you have any questions that come up or that you think of later, then feel free to email us those questions, and we'll be more than happy to respond. All right, thanks everybody for submitting these questions. Please feel free to continue to submit questions, but we have about 10 or so right now, so we're going to get started answering these. So I'm going to read them aloud, and then we will do our best to answer these satisfactorily. So the first question is there a sample work plan?
So, hi everyone, this is David. Brian introduced me a while ago. So yes, there is a sample work plan. We'll be able to get that out to anyone who needs it. So Margaret, there you go. Yeah. Okay. Someone is reporting that they did not see the criminal history check video. I want to actually just let you know that the criminal history check video was required before the member service agreement was signed. So if there's another person at your organization who signed off on a member service agreement, then they would have been the one to view that video. The next question is,
how can you as supervisor find out if the criminal record check has been received? So I think the best way would just be to email us to check and see. The criminal history checks we're primarily working directly with the law students to ensure that they get it uploaded in time. There are automated emails that David can talk more about.
Yeah, so anytime there is anything missing within the SAM system, there are automatic emails that are sent out to the students, informing them that they're missing some sort of background check. So this usually prompts the students to complete those in a timely fashion. So in addition, they also can't start their service hours before. So they generally have their criminal background checks done before anything else moves forward.
Great. Thanks, David. Next question says, the person who supervises, so what if the person who supervises the fellows' work is different from the person who supervises the AmeriCorps JD members' work? And so the first question is okay. Yes, it's okay if they're different. And the person who signs off on the hours is going to be the supervisor for the AmeriCorps JD member. So the way that the time lock certification works is that after the JD member enters their hours for a month, then they are required to certify it first. Once they've certified, then the supervisor receives an email letting them know that they need to click a link and certify hours. So that's how the certifications work. At the end of the service, I would just ask that for your specific situation, please make sure that the two supervisors are in communication with the fellow to make sure that the data that's being reported by the JD member is not including the cases that the Equal Justice Works AmeriCorps fellow has already reported. Okay, it will be difficult to reach deliverables if the fellow and the law student cannot count the same individuals on the report. So yeah, that's a great question. I want to be clear that the deliverables that the legal fellows are required to meet are different. So they're different from what the JD members. The JD members do not have required deliverables that they have to meet. So definitely prioritize the legal fellows when you're reporting data. So legal fellows should be the attorney of record on those cases. And the legal fellows, I'm talking about the full-time attorneys, they should be reporting their data from their cases. For the JD members, they should report data or positive outcomes for cases that they've worked on that separately from the legal fellow. And maybe they won't have any separate cases, and that's fine. They won't be punished. There won't be any negative consequences for that. We'll just ask them to write about that in the narrative section of the final report, but they shouldn't report those numbers in the quantitative section. So I hope that kind of clarifies your question. And then, okay, another good question. So the JD members are not allowed to work directly with the fellows. Can you take that?
So it's my understanding that the JD students are allowed to absolutely work with the fellows. So and to clear up any confusion, yes, they're allowed to, and we really like when they do cooperate with one another so they can learn and really build those networks together.
Absolutely. The only thing to pay attention to with the law student working with the fellow is that the fellow cannot be the supervisor of the JD member. So we expect them and encourage them to work together, but just know that the AmeriCorps full-time attorney fellow cannot sign off on the hours and cannot sign off on the final report for the AmeriCorps JD member. So I have a question to explain the policy regarding which cases the JDs can work on and count. Yeah, so I will try to explain this again. I understand it's a little bit confusing and nuanced. The JD members should not count any cases that they work on with the full-time attorney fellow in their final report. And I'm talking about the final reporting numbers. They should, the JD members should talk about the cases that they work on in their narrative summary, and they can talk about one of those cases in their success stories. But it's just important that if the full-time attorney fellow, for example, has 30 cases that they've worked on, they're reporting on 30 cases in their report, then the AmeriCorps JD member, let's say the JD member worked on all 30 of those cases and did not work on any other cases, then the JD member should not report any of those 30 cases as on their final report. I hope that makes sense. Happy to have a call or discuss this further offline. But happy or thank you for those questions, though. I'm sorry that it's a little bit complicated. Okay, and then we have one more question here about background checks. It says, if the fellow initiated the background check after the start date, so cannot happen, aside from being able to count the hours, or aside from not being able to count the hours that were worked up until the date she initiated the background check, is there anything else that you need to do? No. I mean, go ahead and make sure that you're accompanying that member until the results are received, but there's nothing that you as a supervisor need to do. So, good question. All right, so those are all the questions that we've had typed in. Thank you all for attending today's webinar. Of course, if you have more questions, feel free to reach out to us individually. We're here all summer, happy to answer your questions. We're going to save the recording of this webinar and send it out with all the PowerPoint presentation slides for your convenience. So look forward to being in touch this summer and wish you all the best.